I am not in control. It's all about you.
Okay, we are live. I hope. Just give me a quick comment if we are live. Let me know.
Okay, we
are live because I just saw it on ours. Okay, so
I'm just tracking all these live comments here. Wow.
Yep. So I'll just wait a few minutes. Hi, everybody. Thank you for popping in, and happy May the 4th for everybody.
May 4th be with you.
So I'll give everybody a few minutes to come in before we get into it. And this way I can take a few minutes and say hello to everybody. So I will say hello to Remy. He's the first. We kind of all have a contest now on each other's lives who gets in there first. So Remy was first today. So thank you, Remy, for dropping by. And I know I saw Jean Hudson. Thank you, Jean, for coming. And did your niece have her baby? I know she last week she was looks like she was going to have it like any second. So, and Mary Lynn from Little Homestead by the Beach, thank you for coming in. And let me see. And I think I saw Darren from Thorhaven Farm. Thank you for popping in. And I get to meet all these lovely people Saturday at the Eastern Ontario Homesteaders Conference. We all get to meet in person finally. So looking forward to it. It's probably the biggest thing we've done in over 2 years, at least together. I mean, I went to Florida last month to surprise my mother for a couple of days, but this is kind of like the big event we've done in a couple of years. So it'll be nice to get out of the Trenton for a couple hours anyway. So I'll just give everybody a couple more minutes, and I hope everyone's week's going by. Good. Halfway through, thank God. We got 4 new chickens today. So pretty excited. And our son had track and field today, and it poured. I mean, buckets. And he was not prepared 100%. He did not. Yep. So I am making him a list, and we're going to keep it on the refrigerator of everything he should be taking to be prepared for whatever the situation when he goes track. So we ran out and bought him socks at the store because running in wet socks is not fun. So I said, see, that's another way to be prepared. I think everyone's getting tired of hearing me talk about being prepared, Jeff.
Well, this is probably the wrong place to be then, because that's all we're going to talk about, right?
So, yes, Darren, Thai sushi is still open in Trenton. Though I will tell you, I don't like sushi. I wish I did because people sure seem to love it, but I don't like it. I've tried it. I've had the vegetarian sushi where there's no fish in it. That was pretty good.
That's kind of not sushi roll.
Yeah, I know. It's rice.
Yeah. That's kind of like going to a Chinese restaurant and asking for fries.
Yeah, that's our son.
They probably will. Absolutely.
Yeah. Actually, Aiden does eat rice. It's weird. Of all the issues he has, rice is like, he loves rice. That's one of the things he lives on. So.
Yep.
All right. So we're a couple minutes in. So, okay, we're going to start. And Jeff, what I'll do is I'll just have you introduce yourself a little bit and maybe give us a little backstory on your podcast / YouTube channel.
Absolutely, Lynn. Well, thank you very much. My name there on the screen, Jeff. Thank you very much for everybody dropping by to have this conversation on preparedness. My background is I just retired from the Army about 3 years ago after 28 years and flopping around and looking for something to do post-Army. And so I've been in school most of the time. You're never too old to go back to school. So I went back to school at age 47. And I'm at the very end of completing my next degree, and it should be a lot of time. Yeah, Black Rifle Coffee, we absolutely love it. Just goes along with the Army persona, I guess. I've been an outdoorsman my whole life. The podcast is my pandemic project. I mean, when the pandemic hit us, if you can all remember what April looked like, 2020, right? Pretty scary. None of us really understood at that time. A lot of people still don't understand, but in 2020, we really didn't understand what was happening in the world. And a lot of people started pandemic projects. Some people got chickens. Some people started a homestead. Some people went out and learned a new language. Some people learned to play guitar. I started a podcast, right? Because what else are you going to be able to do when you're trapped and locked down in your house and you can do something, you're studying something, you've got something to say about a subject And for the grand total of $12.99 American per month, I can have a podcast that goes around the world. And so it started with 2 downloads in the month of April 2020. And we now have downloads in 33 countries and well over 3,500 downloads around the world.
Awesome. Awesome. And just putting this up here, Jean is thanking you for your service there.
Yes, thank you. Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
So, yes, just going to put this up here. Right. Yes. Jeff is on Instagram also.
Yeah. It's so the brand Inside My Canoe Head was actually my future daughter-in-law. My eldest son is getting married in October.
I can't believe that. Isn't he like still a baby?
Just don't remind me of that, right? When Lynn and I met in 1993, my son wasn't born for another 5 years. So I've known Lynn just about 30 years now.
Yep.
And yeah, it just reminds us of how old we are. But we were trying to figure out a name. And, you know, you can see the T-shirt and I've got the tattoo to match. It's hard to see there, whatever.
Yeah. There it is. Yep.
There you go. The tattoo to match. So, I mean, I've been canoeing my whole life, right? So we were trying to figure out emergency preparedness, outdoorsman, canoeing, how to put this together. And it was my future daughter-in-law that came up with it. So I'm on Twitter. Yeah.
Smart girl. Clever girl. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah. I think she's a keeper. Yeah, my son thinks so.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, she's a brilliant young woman. And so she came up with the idea. So it's the same thing across YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, podcast is available on Spotify and all the other different services.
And if you go to my homepage here on YouTube, I actually have a link to Jeff's podcast right on my YouTube page there. So if anyone is interested in the podcast, you can just click on that link and it will take you right to it. If I did it right.
Yeah, if not, Inside My Canoe, it's on Spotify, it's on Google, on Amazon. We've got 101 episodes now. Tomorrow I'm recording the 102nd. So
fabulous.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've got people on the other side of the world sending me messages. I had one good friend of mine who is doing relief work in Western Ukraine. She's a relief worker from Germany. And we did our master's degree together in disaster management. And she was asking me for advice how to operate in a combat zone. As a humanitarian worker, she is a midwife because I don't care what's going on in the world. Babies get born.
Exactly.
Babies are born in a war, right?
Yep.
So her and her colleagues were going into Western Ukraine, into some of the smaller towns where the medical systems weren't available anymore, and providing midwife services. So I did a couple of episodes on things you need to think about when you're in a war zone and the other guy doesn't care that you're a humanitarian worker. Right. Because that's a different set of rules as when, you know, when somebody respects the fact that you're a humanitarian worker and somebody doesn't. Right. So yeah, it's really cool. I've you know, people reaching out from United Arab Emirates. And at one point I was in the top 20 podcasts in Kenya. Like,
that's just so
why?
cool.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, so my first question's here, and my eyes are tired now, so I had to get these. So just give me a second here.
I love your glasses.
They're tired. So what made you realize you needed to be more prepared for emergencies or life-altering events, or, you know, when life decides to give us lemons? What made you realize that you wanted to be prepared? Was there any like major thing or? Yeah,
actually, it's a funny story. So in 2005, we bought our first home on a military move like you. We finally eventually bought a house. And it was out in the country on a well and septic. Never owned one of those before, right? Yeah. So the power goes out. I've got little kids. Let's just run a tub. I've got a tank full of hot water I don't want to waste. I had no idea that the well pump required power. Like literally, I turn on the tap. I got about 4 dribbles. And then I got 2 naked kids sitting in bubbles and I got no water. And I'm like, what? What? Like, I had no idea. And we had an electric stove, so I had no way to heat water up. Holy smokes. Yeah, it's absolutely hilarious. You're right on the lemon juice. Like, seriously, that was the first time I realized I probably should do something to think about all of this. And then looking out the front of my house there in Geary, New Brunswick, my neighbor across the way, his house is lit up like a freaking Christmas tree. He's got generators going. He's doing absolutely everything. He probably wasn't even aware that the power was out. And I'm looking at me. I can't make a cup of tea for my beautiful wife. And you know my wife, she doesn't get her tea. I might as well just leave the house.
That's why we're friends.
Exactly, right?
As I drink my tea.
So I couldn't make her a tea. I couldn't wash the kids. I couldn't turn anything on. I felt utterly useless. And so that was really the key start. And then within a year, my first tour over in Afghanistan in Kandahar, you start to get exposure to real poverty, like not just I can't buy some groceries this week, but real abject, true poverty and people who truly live on the absolute edge of struggling for life and death every day. And forget the war, just struggling to get potable water, struggling to get food, struggling, etc. And the more you travel the world, the more and more you see people struggling in this kind of thing. And then, you just kind of have a look at it and say, you know what, there needs, the government's not coming to help. And I mean, you'll hear that throughout my whole blah, blah, blah today, is that the government, as well-intentioned, and a number of my good friends work in emergency management at municipal, state level. Some of them work in FEMA, etc. And they don't have the capacity to come rescue everybody. When, as was I joke with you earlier, when the shizzy hits the fizzy.
That's my new favorite expression.
Yeah. So when something goes wrong, the wonderful government that we pay taxes for has an exceptionally small capacity. So you roll that up, it's just little old me standing in the front porch of my house, and I can't do anything. And my neighbor across the way is living the life of Riley, and he's got, he's cooking supper and everything, and they're having hot showers, and I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to get a cup of tea.
Because if you don't have power, chances are the Tim Hortons down the road doesn't have power either.
Well, no. And the thing was, is in rural New Brunswick, we had a lot of power outages. Now, most of them didn't last more than 24 hours at best, but you had a lot of frequent throughout the winter.
Yeah.
And, when your house is heated by either electric or a propane fireplace and the power goes out and it's minus 30, it doesn't take long for you to get cold.
Yep. That's always our biggest fear is losing power for a while. I mean, it doesn't bother me, but again, we're on a well too. So we need to be able to get water. But it's in the winter time, right? If you have no other heat source, it gets cold. And we've had a couple instances here in Trenton where we've lost power in the winter for 4 or 5 days. And it gets cold. It gets real cold. So yeah, no, but I laugh because David grew up on a well and septic, so he knew. But the first time we lost power and I went to turn the water on, I'm like, David, the water's not working. He's like, the power's out. I'm like, so, He's like, Lynn, the well needs to power electricity to pump it into the house. Oh,
I had no idea. Like, I grew up in a city, right? I grew up in a townhouse in a city on the East Coast. Like, power outages, everything still works except for the power, if you know what I mean. The water works, the toilets work, like everything keeps going, right?
Yeah. So I just took it for granted. I don't know how many times the kids and I throughout that day kept going and went, oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, that's right.
And you're absolutely right. The comment there from Thorhaven about Arrowhead coffee, they make awesome coffee. Yes, I do have those. I just don't have an Arrowhead coffee mug.
Okay.
But yes, Arrowhead coffee. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And we don't drink coffee in this house. The only time we have coffee is when my mother's visiting.
Well, then remember, if I ever come down to visit you, I'm bringing my own.
I will say, we've got some coffee in the freezer because I use it when I make chocolate cake. But other than that, I don't have coffee. So
yeah.
All right. So with all that, and that made you realize you wanted to be prepared. So what made you want to start the podcast and the YouTube channel? I know you touched on it a little bit. It was your pandemic project, but why about preparedness? Like, why make a podcast about that?
So yeah, that started about 10 years ago, actually. So in 2012, sitting in some far off land, deciding that I think I was pretty much done with the Army. Like, you get to a point in a job where I've done enough. And I was looking for an education, and that's where I found to do my master's in disaster and emergency management. So I did that starting in 2012 or 2013, 2014, 2015. Then I worked in a hospital for 2.5 years, the only Canadian military hospital. And so I worked in that. And a lot of that is about seeing the limitations of what people can do. And then I started to study, and the degree I'm in now, I'm just finishing up my PhD. Someday this year, I'll be able to call myself Dr. D, for love of God. This thing will eventually end. It's like a 5-year project. Who knew it would be this long? But the funny part about it is I'm actually studying emergency preparedness for school. So I've done it in my previous degree. I did it in this one. So I've spent the last 8 years reading pretty much everything anybody's ever written about the subject, right? I mean, that's why you're not an expert just because you get a university degree. You become the expert because you actually read that everybody read. And when you read it, then you realize that, hold on a second, why after, and this is the question that I ask all the time, why after 30 years of messaging from all levels of government repeatedly, why are people still not prepared? All you have to do is you look at the power goes out for 2 days, right? People are on the radio like it's the apocalypse. The end of the world has come because their power's gone out.
Yeah.
And it happens whether it's a hurricane that knocks out the power, whether it's an earthquake or tornado goes through part of the southern US, or something like that happens. You look at the people panic buying on the coast of Florida and you're like, really? 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 Like, you've been doing this for 100 years,
yep.
and you still don't buy your plywood and your generator until 24 hours before you're about to get smoked.
Yeah.
Like, so I find that incredibly interesting. Like, why, with all of this stuff out there, like, why aren't people listening? Why aren't people paying attention?
Why aren't people listening?
And so that's that's where the podcast came from. Is, maybe let's look into it. Let's ask that question. Let's talk to people. And that's what I did for my PhD. Went around and talked to dozens of people to try to answer that question. Like, why aren't you? You're a smart person. It's all available on the internet.
What were some of the answers they were giving you?
Well, it competes with everything else in life. Life's 100 miles an hour, right? Life is busy. When you look at, and one of the things that I say repeatedly, preparedness is largely free. Right? It's never a question of buying stuff. So if you have a charlatan out there that's telling you to stock up on these 15 items or buy these kits, that's a load of horse, what, right? Like, preparedness is largely free, but it's competing with everything else that's going on in life, right? So like right now, this is Emergency Preparedness Week across North America, right? So This is the week that you're supposed to be covering and flooding the airwaves, right? We happen to have a war going on. Somebody leaked something out of the Supreme Court of the US, which has kind of taken over all of American media. Yeah. You have this really wild and crazy trial that's ongoing for defamation between, a celebrity couple. So you're competing against that. You're competing against all these other things. And if it's never happened to you, a lot of people are apathetic, right? They're apathetic. I've never had to ask somebody else to feed me. So because I've never been in that position, I don't thinking about feeding myself in a significant disruption, right?
Yep. No, I was just reading a couple comments here. Jean was saying the biggest trouble they're having where she lives is that people are buying up baby formula for milk.
Yeah.
And then I've been hearing that other people saying that they can't find formula for babies on shelves right now. Are they using it in place of milk? Is that what they're doing? Well, then buy powdered milk.
Well, there's two. Powdered milk is it requires more work, and people are not familiar with it, right? So 20 odd years of my military career, I did supply chain management, right? So when you look at why the stores are running out, it's not because factories are running short in anything. They're not. They're actually working just fine. It's that people are purchasing out of normal cycles, right?
Right.
So when there will, like, I live in Canada, right? So we will never run out of paper products, right? We've got a massive paper industry. It's physically impossible in the next 100 years for Canada to run out of toilet paper. We ran out of toilet paper because everybody showed up on the same day to buy 3 weeks worth of toilet paper.
We have a factory here in
Right?
Trenton who makes
Yeah.
it.
There
right
is,
here.
and
I just want to say we were not out because I buy it whether we need it or not. It's just one of those things we have. I don't hoard it,
no,
but we have a stockpile, and we gave some away to people because they did not have it. So we were able to do that. So that people were losing their minds.
Well, again, it's a shock to people. Are what's a person's reaction to an significant shock for which they're not prepared, right? For something like, you're not prepared for a pandemic. Nobody was.
Nobody
I don't care who you are. Nobody was. I wasn't.
Government
Nobody
sure
was.
wasn't,
right?
But okay,
So,
we'll just leave it there.
no, they weren't. Oh, we can go on for hours about that if you want to.
Yeah.
But no, they didn't. Like, nobody was ready for a pandemic. So people, instead of, the average person shows up to their grocery store once a week, and about 15 to 20% of the population served by the grocery store will show up every day. Mm-hmm. They can do that forever. That's the supply chain. It works perfectly. Yeah. But when 50% of the served population show up to buy 4 weeks of food in one day, it knocks out the shelves. So it's not a question of running out or not being able to produce. So there's going to be shortages, and that, you'll hear me all day today. It's like, it's not the apocalypse. The sky is not falling. It's just people's reaction to unexpected events are to hoard, right? Like the guy that has 2 windows in Florida and buys 8 sheets of plywood.
Yeah.
He's got 2 windows to cover, but he buys 8 sheets of plywood.
Yep.
And so then they run out of plywood, and all of a sudden there's an international shortage on plywood. No, the plywood is perfectly fine. It's you, the consumer, that's buying all kinds of stuff.
Yep. No, it was, we were fine. We could have gone, honestly, 6 months without going to the store. Other than milk, because we don't have a dairy cow or dairy goat, and our son lives on milk. So that would have
been and exactly as Thor Haven said there, create your own food supply chain. Yeah, right. We can get into that, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely.
Yep. And that's one of the things we're trying to do here. Okay, so what is it that makes your podcast and YouTube channel different from all the other preparedness channels out there? And I know you don't like being called a prepper. So that's a mouthful, all the other preparedness channels out there. But what makes yours different from all those?
Because I don't sell the fact that the sky is falling, right? I don't believe in what I call a pocket talk, right? Every time you turn on channels like Canadian Prepper or City Prepping or Urban Prepper or something like that, it's always, you've got 5 minutes to get to the grocery store and then it's all gone, or it's about to start. You've got everything. The most powerful human emotion is fear, right? It is the most powerful human emotion. And prepper channels are infamous for feeding off people's fear. They make you feel like you are currently inadequate because you haven't taken the necessary steps, and they're telling you what to do, and you're going to run up your credit card to get a whole bunch of useless crap that you have no idea why it's for, but some Yahoo on YouTube gave you a list of the next 15 things to stock up on. And I'm like, for what? What plan got you to the idea that you would need those 15 things, right? Yeah. 2 years of food, really? Okay. But my question to you is, why 2 years? Why not 2.5? Why not 18 months? Before you go,
right. Why 2? Yeah.
Before you go in the effort of having a homestead and canning 2 years of food, you should probably think about why you chose 2 versus 18 months. You know what I mean? There's a difference there. And so we don't talk about a pocket talk. What the whole premise behind what I try to do in the preparedness space is, I'm all about helping people who want to live their normal lives, right? They're not selling everything and running to go into a yurt. They don't want to go off grid. Nothing wrong with off grid, nope. But I'm not telling you have to go off grid and run into the Woods or Shofar Mountain in Utah or whatever Pastor Joe Fox's place is, whatever you want to call it. These are us normal folks who want to continue to rock a great life. I live in a townhouse in a city of 1 million people. I have no desire to leave the city, right? I have no desire whatsoever. But you have these regular people who are seeing these disruptions occur in their life. So they want to carry on their normal life. They want to rock it. They just want to wrap it in a little blanket of preparedness. So they're a little bit more ready when weird stuff happens. And right now we got a lot of weird stuff happening. So, it's
I keep waiting for the locust.
Well, it's probably coming.
I know.
It's yeah, you're right. It's all about fear. Everybody fuels fear and it drives. And this is the reason why I started preparedness. And I started talking about, and I'm sure we'll get into it, like the steps to preparedness. What really makes sense is because you've got a whole slew of people that are telling people to do crazy, ridiculous things that are utterly, I'll put my nerd hat on, all right? Because I got a nerd hat. So I'll put my nerd hat on. They're illogical. There is no evidence to support that course of action. I'll then put on my fear hat. Yeah, okay. I'm going to go get a trauma bag. There are people out there for trauma medicine that I need to have, tourniquets and gunshot wound kits. What situation are you planning to get in where you're going to get shot at?
The zombies.
Like, how many of them? That's what I love. How many of them were? You got pictures of these guys sitting on these, 150-pound bug out bags that they spent $2,000 on, sitting with their AR-15, going, "This is not the apocalypse I was promised." Right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I'm going to be honest too, Jeff. Like a couple of years ago, when I was starting to look into more of that and saw some of these things, and I would look at my husband David and I say, like, should we like have all this stuff? And he's like, are you planning on having some kind of army invade our home or something? I'm like serious, but it made me stop and think, like, and it does make you think, oh wait, there's something wrong because I'm not ready for all that.
Well,
so
but and a lot of us aren't, and I wasn't, and I'm still learning, and we're all learning. And it's like Jean says, a lot of people are on fixed income.
Yep.
So if you come across and start telling people that preparedness is now going to compete with your rent, your electricity, and your food, where does preparedness go? It goes out the window, and rightfully so. Yeah. So my offering to the preparedness world out there is at the end, when you make a family plan, you might just end up having to buy something. Your plan might say that, right? But it's going to be something that you figured out you needed to fill a hole in your plan.
Like for us, we are a generator is on our list of things that we're hoping to get this year. Because for me, what I'm worried about is my freezers. In the summertime, if the power goes down, that is, and I will say we even got special insurance, because this is another way we prepared. We got special insurance for our freezers. I think we have like a $2,500 value, but it's not just the value, it's the waste that would
it's the waste, and you're assuming that you'll be able to get the food to replace it, right? So
yeah.
When you think about generator, though, again, one of the things we go through when we develop a preparedness plan is when you think about power profile, right? And that's what I call it, when a family determines how much power you need when the power goes out. So what's your minimal acceptable power load that you must maintain 24/7 when the power goes out? It's different for everybody. Like Jean's, Thor's,
right,
yours, mine, they're all going to be different because each one of our families are different, right? I don't have a deep freeze. You have a deep freeze. I have other things that I need power for, right? So you first, before you think about getting a generator, you think about, what do I need the generator for? Like, how many watts do I need to be able to power? Because there's no use going down getting 1,000-watt champion gas powered 200-pound beast for your backyard when really all you need is something exceptionally smaller, right?
Yeah.
Like the number one thing, and I'll show you here, this is a power bank, right?
Right.
So this has a solar panel on the top, and this holds 6 charges of an iPhone.
Oh, cool.
So when the power goes out, I'm not running out and starting up my car like every other Yahoo on my street power to recharge their phone, right? So I've got 6 charges for an iPhone. It can charge an iPad. It can charge every other device. All of my headlamps and flashlights in the house, I don't have any batteries. I don't own anything that requires batteries, right? Everything is rechargeable from the sun. And when I went through figuring out my power, I realized solar power was better than gas generator, because for me, my power profile was low enough that I got a lithium solar generator, and I have solar panels that I lean up in the backyard. So I've literally got time immemorial all the power I need forever and ever, amen, and never have to start an engine.
Yeah. But I mean, that kind of takes me to our next question is, what does being prepared mean or look like to you?
So for me, it's a process that we have at Inside My Canoe Head, we have a 12-step process. And no, we're not all alcoholics. Some of us may be, but we might not admit that. But the first part of preparedness for anybody in the world is accepting responsibility for your outcomes, right? That is the number one question we ask everybody. We just ask you the question, who is responsible for your outcomes? If you think the government is, good luck to you. Off you go, right? Have a great life. But if, like most people here, I would presume, because you're homesteaders and you've taken a lot of steps towards being more self-reliant, the answer to that and say, okay, I'm responsible for my outcomes. That's actually the biggest hurdle in preparedness. The next thing, realistically, is funny enough, is how do you define family? Like, before you decide what you're going to do, you have to decide who you're responsible for. And that may seem, of course, it's my family. Well, welcome to the 21st century. Ward Cleaver's nuclear families isn't around anymore, or they're rare, right? You may have a senior member of your family living in an old folks home, one town over. Are you going to put them into your preparedness plan, or are you going to leave them on your own? You may have multi-generational living in your house. You may be of a culture where you have 3 generations living under the same roof. You may have medical needs. You may have a family member, like I have a kid who has a peanut allergy, right? Life-threatening peanut allergy. I have to take that into consideration, right? So you have to sit down and deliberately, how do you define family? Who's in? Who's out? Who am I kicking out? You're on your own. Get the hell out of here, right? Who's in? And then you go through what are their needs. So how much money have you spent so far? Absolutely nothing. You've bought nothing, but you've defined, number one, that you're going to accept responsibility and take charge. You've figured out who you're going to help, because everybody's family is different. I can't give you a plan that works for everybody. Food, water. Right. Okay, Russell, everybody needs food and water, because your family's different than mine. And then the last thing is timeline. So the 2-year timeline, right? So why 2 years? Why 6 months? Why 3 months? Me, I'm 90 days. I'm up front with everybody on the podcast. I am prepared for 90 days. So the question that we ask is, if I was to shut off all of your utilities right now, so power, sewer, water, gas, everything. If I turn off all your utilities right now, how long would you want to be able to support that family you defined in your house before you have to ask for help? The reason a fixed number doesn't work is because you may be more or less self-confident than I am. You may be more self-reliant than I am. You may be more of a worrywart than I am, or the other way around. Every individual looks at risk differently, right? So you have to ask these questions, come up with answers. So for me, I have a family of 4 living in a townhouse, and I want to be prepared for 90 days. And so with that information, I'm now ready to start looking at other aspects. But I'll tell you, the number one thing is social capital. Exactly what you're building here. All of these incredible people that are all here on your YouTube channel, this is a social network. This is the key underlying of my studies, but this is the most powerful tool you will ever have in preparedness are these other incredible human beings. And it's not, they will come help you, sure, but they're probably 200 kilometers away. But what you have access to is this. You have access to their skills. You have access to their knowledge. You have access to their experience. You can brainstorm. You can trade ideas. You can problem solve together. And guess how much that costs?
Nothing.
This is what I'm talking about. Preparedness, real preparedness that actually helps you is free. It's free.
Yep.
Community is everything, your neighbors. Now, if you get that through faith, a lot of people have really tight faith communities in different religions. That's a social network. Where I grew up, we knew everybody on the street. Nowadays, nobody knows anybody, right?
Nope.
And so it's that sense of community. Now, whether your community is next door or whether your community is 150 miles down the road, this community you're building is, when the shizzy hits the fizzy, right? Where I'm pretty sure in some form through using battery power, you're going to be hopping on this Instagram network and you're going to be talking to people and you're going to create a group chat and you're going to start problem solving. And that's far better than any freaking axe or shovel or freeze dried food or generator that you have. Oh no, it's by far. And this is what we try to tell the government, because we're saying governments need to be helping people build community, right?
Right. Yep.
Helping people build community, helping people build relationships, right? Because listen, like all this studying that in humanitarian and traveling around the world, when you go to an earthquake zone, who pulls people out of the rubble? It's your neighbors.
Yep.
It's not the first responders. They're great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it's not the firefighters, it's not the police, and it's not the EMS that pulls people out of a tornado wreckage. It's not at all. By time the flashing lights show up, everybody's already pulled out of the rubble. Now, yes, there always are a few really difficult cases to deal with, but the vast majority of people are already pulled out of the rubble when the lights and sirens show up. That's your community. That's the people that matter, right? And that's so, and then what you do is then you start, on our channel, we talk about critical infrastructure, right? So we look at, modern society is held up by critical infrastructure. So power, food, transportation systems, IT, government, finance. In America, they say there's 16. FEMA says there's 16 sectors. The Canadian government says 10. I think FEMA's right, but I'm a Canadian, so I gotta give the nod to the Canadians. But you look at these elements and you say, okay, so power. Everybody likes to talk about power, right? You're looking at a generator. So you sit down and you think, how much am I exposed to the power grid? Like, what risk am I accepting if the power goes out? And the most important question I ask people is like, what does your world look like when the power turns off? Like, what does it look like? How does that, some people, and I'm sure some of these wonderful people out here on homesteads are going to be far less impacted than little old me in a townhouse, a row townhouse development in an urban city, right? Yeah. Different exposure, but your life changes. Some of these critical infrastructure, if public transit goes down in Belleville, you're probably couldn't give two, what.
No, I couldn't, because it doesn't affect me. But
if you're a single mother,
yes,
who's has 3 kids and you work a job on one side of town and your daycare's on the other, and your only way to get around the city is public transit, and transit goes down, your life is upside down. So again, that's why a preparedness plan is different for everybody, right? Yep. Because so you look at all these elements of critical infrastructure and you start to see, how does that affect me? And then you say, okay, I don't like this. Like you, I need to be able to generate 400 watts of power 24 hours a day. I can't do that right now. So in the end, you're probably going to end up having to buy something. Now you go and you look at what are the options available. right? Because
Yeah.
a gas generator is always cheaper.
Yep.
But you got to buy fuel.
Yes.
And when you run out of fuel, I don't care how many thousands you spend on your generator. It's a paperweight.
Yep.
So the solar generators are more expensive up front, but technically, if they don't break, they never run out of power. So
as long as we have the sun.
Well, if we don't have the sun, we got bigger problems.
Yeah, we got bigger problems, right?
That's called nuclear winter, and we can all just kiss ourselves goodbye, right?
And I was thinking too, how even in our household, there's just 4 of us. It's my husband and I and our 2 kids. And I would say even David and I's needs for what we need are totally different from what the kids would answer, right? So I think it's important probably too to make sure everyone in the household is on the same page with what you need to be prepared and what you need. Because I can tell you right now, Dave and I could go a lot longer than those 2 teenagers could.
But see, the thing is like, and you're going to have to live with those teenagers. You can't throw them out. You probably want to, Sunday. But you're going to have to live with them, right? So you want to include them. And so for me, my son is an animator and a pro gamer and all that stuff. So the internet is huge.
Yep.
So when the power goes out, I can power my own router, so I don't lose the internet.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So
okay. Yeah. I didn't even think of that, but because it's not important to me, but it is to him.
I mean, we all got the phones and we can get our internet on the phones, right? That's fair enough. But if you're using a PC, like a Mac or a PC or some computer, how are you going to run the internet without power? And so I determined for my family that was required. So I figured out a way when the power goes out for, 2, 3, 4 days, I can still connect to the internet.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm just reading Darren at Thorhaven. Yep, that's exactly what it would be. It goes out for like 5 minutes here, and he comes out of the room. And he's like, "Is something wrong with the internet?" And Dave and I lose it laughing because we're going 5, 4, 3, like we're counting down till he yells down.
Yeah. And so if you want to keep peace in the household, whether you like it or not, the kids' generation is connected and it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And it's okay because that's their generation. It's not ours. That's their generation. But they need the internet. They need the internet.
Yeah.
Like welcome to the world. So I realized that if I want to keep sanity in my house, I need to provide the internet. So again, other places that wouldn't matter. They wouldn't need that in their power profile. So it's really about ditching the apoca talk. The world is not collapsing, right? Chicken Little is not running around. The sky's not falling. Nobody's going to throw nuclear weapons at us. The supply chain is not about to collapse. You're not about to run out of food on all the stocks. That is all fear mongering. Are you going to have disruptions? Yeah. So somebody earlier was talking about food, and the homesteaders are awesome on food, right?
Yep.
Exactly. So the question I ask people is, where does your food come from? Like, I don't mean your cool, weird sauces that you love, those weird ones that come in from, but your staples, your core food that your family likes to eat. Where does it come from? Everybody loves the 100-mile diet, right? Picking up and getting things that are created and made and put together from 100 miles around you, right?
Right.
You have the ability, not just homesteader, but you have the ability to choose to buy all of your food products from a local producer. You can choose to buy those weird, and I don't call it food, I call it manufactured goods, that stuff in the center of the grocery store. I call it manufactured goods. If you decide to rely on manufactured goods for food, then is it the supply chain's fault that you can't find food? Or is it your fault for relying on a Chinese factory and massive imports in the Eastern US and a factory system all down the Eastern seaboard that puts food together in a factory, like a manufactured good, and ships it off, right?
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong. I love my Heinz ketchup, right? This house, without this Heinz ketchup, this house would just come apart.
Yeah.
But I can feed my family off of food. I live in a townhouse and I got one of those tiny little postage stamp lots, right? So I'm growing like 2 bean sprouts and a tomato plant every year.
But you're
But,
growing something.
but what I do is I pay into a community supported agriculture. So
Yep.
there's a local farm here. I give them $500 a year. I
Yep.
buy a share in the farm. If it's a bumper crop, it's a bumper crop for me and the farmer. If it's a poor year, but I get my stuff from a local farmer.
Right.
Right. I pay to get my produce from a local farmer. So if California has a drought, it doesn't affect my food supply. Florida has a
Exactly.
freeze and all the citrus goes away.
Yes.
It doesn't
Yes.
affect my food supply.
Yep.
A family friend of ours, they own a farm in Denbigh, Ontario, a pork farm. So once a month, he comes up here with a big box of frozen pork stuff, like
Yep.
roast and bacon. And like I make the choice, which by the way, it's actually cheaper to buy it from the local
Yep.
farmer
It
than
is.
it is
It's
in
cheaper for us.
the store.
We're even closer. Our people we get it from literally is 5 minutes this way and 5 minutes that way. The 2 farms that we get our pork and beef from. You can't get fresher than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Right?
and yeah, because we're not in a position to like raise a cow or whatever, but I like it because I'm helping support a local family, 2 local families, and I know what I'm getting, and I literally see the animal, that I'm getting it from.
Yeah.
So, you're right. Like if people are complaining, I will say we have a child with special needs. So part of those special needs is dietary needs. He was a little more affected by everything going topsy-turvy 2 years ago because of his issues. And that made me nervous. That was the only time I got nervous because I started thinking, what am I going to feed this child? They're not making, whatever it was at the time we couldn't find for him. We couldn't find it anywhere, even online. So that's the only thing. But I mean, now we're a little bit more prepared. Now I've got a nice little stockpile of things for him. So
it is kind of like Thorhaven Farm there is saying about it's never been an SHTF, which is poop hit the fan there, shizzy hits the fizzy, and run into the bush, because I'm a bushcrafter, right? I like to do cool projects in the woods and build weird shelters, but I don't think there's ever going to be a situation where I have to grab my family and run into the woods and build fires. I live in a city of 1 million people. I'm not going anywhere. This gets to the important question about evacuation, right?
Right.
So I'm not leaving my house. I'm leaving my house if it's on fire.
Yeah.
I don't care whether I'm not going, I don't believe in authority. If my damn house is on fire, I'm leaving the house.
Yeah.
The key is to that is I've already planned where I'm going. So,
Right.
And it's cost $0. I have a friend of mine who lives about 200 kilometers away, and we have a reciprocal agreement. If the shizzy hits the fizzy in his town or my town, I'm coming to his house. He's coming to mine. No call required. He can show up at my doorstep anytime. It costs me zero money. I don't wait for the government to tell me where to evacuate to. I don't wait for the government to tell me what to take with me. If I have to evacuate, and only if the house is literally on fire, I've already know where I'm going. I've thought that through. So the big thing about preparedness is thinking through the plan, thinking through what you're going to do. And like Gene says there, EpiPen is over $600. Yeah. My kid needs an EpiPen, right? An EpiPen for a severe reaction is worth 15 minutes. If the medical system is classed down, you can't prepare for that. You can't, because like, for example, I had a good friend of mine and we went on a canoe trip once. There was 31 of us, and she is allergic to bees. And we were way back in the bush, and she brought one EpiPen. She goes, this is going to give me 15 minutes to write my will, because she would have to literally carry a bag with 20 or 30 of these things to keep her alive until rescuers got there. So she knew she needed an EpiPen to write her will. So like, I can't buy enough EpiPens to keep my son alive.
Yeah.
I can't. It's welcome to the world. I can't. There's nothing I can do about that. But we're not leaving this house unless it's on fire. And if it's on fire, I know exactly where I'm going. So I
Yep.
don't need any intervention from the government. I have it already figured out. And it's all, and that's preparedness, right? That's going through. And when you plan for a problem and you come up with a plan, what happens to your fear level?
Yeah.
Your anxiety starts to do this, right?
Yeah.
So because when the pandemic started, I had a 60-day supply of stuff in my house. So when everybody went crazy about shopping, I sat back and drank my coffee and watched it all because I knew I was perfectly fine for months.
We did the same thing. We watched it on TV and like people like fighting and we just look at one another and like, oh, this is scarier than what's causing what they said was causing it, like the panic. I said, seeing the people panic was scarier than everything. So
well, exactly. And if you go through the planning process, again, it's not about buying stuff. It's about organizing yourself. And like Dora says about having cash, if you go through the financial aspect of your preparedness plan and you come up with an answer that says, I need to have cash, you'll figure out exactly how much you need and for what purpose you want the cash. You have cash, copies of your documents, right? Yeah. Some people have it. I have none of them. I'm not going to win an argument with the insurance company as to what's covered and not. Okay. So I can hold up an insurance doc. You know what I have? I have an app on my phone that's got a button that lets me press and file a claim. That's good enough for me. Other people may want the documents. I couldn't give a rat's butt what it says, right? Because I'm not going to win the argument as to what I'm covered for and what I'm not. This is a whole nother
topic. I can't stand insurance companies.
Yeah, it's a multi-billion-dollar company, and I'm Joe Jeff here in the corner. Like I'm going to lose that fight every time.
Yeah, every time.
So yeah, I mean, so you have the stuff that you need, and everybody needs something different, right? So like, if you have to evacuate your home because of a fire, and you've got a child with a certain set of needs, you're going to take some stuff to meet that certain set of needs. So wherever you go, you don't become reliant on somebody else meeting that need for you. It's back to that first question of, who's responsible for your outcomes.
And I think we maybe have a little bit more of a leg up in that, being military and just from the culture where we don't ask for help. Sometimes to our detriment. Suck it up, buttercup, right? Like we tend to not, and so we're kind of already in that, and then being not around family and stuff, we've had to learn to be like self-reliant or rely on each other. So you
become it's a mindset for people, and it's not necessarily like, again, buying thing. It's just understanding that when something happens and when the power goes out, or all of a sudden, I don't have access to my bank account anymore. Imagine you supported a trucker convoy and the government came in and froze your bank account. What's your plan? And the biggest thing that I ask people right now,
imagine that.
I know, but what's your plan when you get fired?
Yeah.
Look, I'm dead serious. Like, I don't care what you do. I don't even care if you own your own company. What's your plan when you get fired?
Yep.
And if you don't have that rock solid plan, which includes the next career I'm going to go to is this is the amount of months I need to get it up and running. Remember, you can learn anything you want in the world on YouTube. You don't need to go to school for anything. It's all free on YouTube. but that's part of your preparedness plan. Like I say that, I'm not going to get, you are going to get fired. Ask people in the pandemic. How many people went into the pandemic thinking they weren't getting fired? And then you ask yourself,
I did.
Exactly. So and we did this for the longest time in my family, if you're crazy enough to try to raise a family on one income in today's world, that is a massive risk exposure that you're putting yourself against. Because if you're a one income family, that's great until you're not.
Yeah.
Until you're not an income family anymore. Right.
Yeah.
So when we work with people, we counsel that you need probably 3, maybe 5 lines of income. And some of them could be like $100 a month. YouTube ad revenue, like literally, like I've got one line of income. It pays like $310 a month. But guess what? My utilities aren't getting shut off. Yeah. Like seriously, like it's small. It doesn't mean a second job. It means multiple lines of income in the family. Right.
Yeah. For
And
us, our son's braces are taken care of every month because of a small, so yeah.
this is it, right?
Yep.
And so your anxiety level starts to come down when you realize all of these possible life disruptions you've thought through, you've come up with a strategy for it that fits you and your family. And again, it's not a pocket talk. You haven't bought 2 years of food. You're not ready to sell everything and run into the woods in a yurt or something crazy like that, right?
I mean, and in reality too is not everyone is blessed enough to have a big enough place to store 2 years worth of shelf stable food or whatever you want to like. We're bursting at the seams here as it is. So yeah, like, I mean, people need to take that into account too. Where are you going to store it all? Like, if you were to do that, like, that's just crazy.
Well, exactly. And then if you decide, like right now, say you have 30 days of food in your house when you have a look at it and you do a little bit of planning and you decide like you're thinking 60 or 90 days. What a lot of people are saying is exactly couponing, buying one extra can. You know, preparedness is something that you work on. It's not, I'm going to go out today and buy a bunch of crap and then I can't do it because I don't have any money, right?
Yeah.
Some people have 30 years of toilet paper. That's awesome.
I'd say we have a good 6 months. I wouldn't say I have 30 years. I also have 2 teenagers. So that takes, you think they go through a lot when they're 5.
Right. And so like when I moved from 60 to 90 days for my planning number, I took probably 3 or 4 months to get that. I just like it didn't make any sense to go out and buy it. I just realized with the pandemic and a few things that were going on, I had a little bit more risk exposure that I was comfortable with. So, and again, run out of tea for my best friend, I'm in huge trouble.
Yeah.
Like, really trouble. Huge trouble.
What would you say to people who say that they believe we're just fostering fear and paranoia, like the exact opposite of what you're trying to do? But there's so many out there like, oh, when you even talk about, I think part of the problem is whenever we talk about preparedness, those other people you were talking about is what people think of.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. People think about, because when you turn it on, listen, I'm a YouTube channel with, I think I'm up to 16 subscribers now, which is awesome. But you go there and there's guys with 750,000 subscribers and they're telling you that you have sheer moments to get everything that you need. And they're stoking fear. And every time you hear the word prepper, it means I must be sitting happily with my shotgun waiting for the world to collapse so I get the apocalypse I want, right? Yeah. Preparedness is for me, it's, you want to rock, everybody's life goals are different. Lynn, yours are different from mine. We're both pursuing our lives in different ways, and everybody on here has got different goals than everybody else. And you want to keep doing that. Preparedness should never stop you from pursuing your goals. It's just there to wrap a little blanket of insulation. So when a disruption occurs that's out of your control, like a pandemic, a cyber attack on the power grid that takes it down for 14 days, because you've taken some steps and thought through a process and written down a plan and come up with some ideas, you're still able to carry on with the majority of your life and continue to complete your goals in a power outage because you've taken time. Because you're not, oh my Lord, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I can't do anything. The power's out. Like you see in some places, when the power's out for 48 hours, people are blocking the roads to prevent the power trucks from leaving until they hook up their power because they're so terrified, right? Right.
I'm just saying, Mary Lynn says you have 23 subscribers now.
Oh, yeah. That is awesome. That's incredible. No, seriously, that's incredible. Because
I'm hoping now that some of the people from the live will go check you out. I've been catching up on your videos. I'm so far behind on my YouTubing. Things have just been crazy here. So
the YouTube, I did it for the first little bit, and then it, like you, it's time consuming. I love doing it, but I'm trying to complete a PhD at the same time, and that takes up a whole bunch of my time. And I teach on the side. I teach economics at university on the side. So all of that was eating up too much time. So I just did a couple of videos on YouTube about canoe camping gear, thinking about preparedness in the same way. And I'm going to start doing more preparedness related videos. I mean, the podcast is all on preparedness, but I'm going to start catching up with the YouTube.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you. I mean, this is a great question for the people in the chat. What do you want to hear? And this is what I ask people on Instagram all the time. Like on Instagram and Twitter and my Buy Me a Coffee site, I put up a daily preparedness tip. So I have 342 of these created. I think I'm on 22 or 23 now. I think tomorrow's 24.
Yeah.
But I'm putting out what I think is great information, but that's useless if it's not information that people want to consume. So a big question back ask to your community that I ask on the podcast all the time is, what do people want to hear? Like, what issues do you want to be addressed in a normal, calm, non-apocalyptic, intelligent manner? Welded to my head. That's awesome. Mr. Canoe Head. Yeah.
I know a little bit what he's talking about, not a lot, because
But the thing is, it's like you're talking about homesteading, right? You're producing information. You're showing how you do homesteading, hoping people are interested in that.
Right.
And I'm doing the same. But what you and I both in our different channels are looking for is, what do people want to watch? Like, what questions do you have that aren't answered that you would like somebody else's perspective on? We're all intelligent people. We can all solve problems, so what would you like a thought piece on? What would you like advice on? So if you want to talk about power in a modern day living in a city, I can do an episode on power. You know what I mean? Like what did people, and I don't care about subscriber revenue. I've got 24 people. That's sometime in the future, because again, I produce this. This is my passion project. I'm retired Army. I'm going Inside My Canoe Head is my future project, right? This is what I'm doing in retirement. So I would far rather spew about something you're interested in listening to than just spewing for the sake of spewing, right? I mean, seriously.
I just want to say good night, Mary Lynn. Thanks. I can't wait to meet you finally in person Saturday, and you and Rem have a safe trip here. So, yeah, they're heading out. Okay, I think I got a couple more questions. Let's see if we can get to them.
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay. What 3 pieces of advice would you give people who don't know where to start? If you had to give only 3.
If I had to give only 3, the first thing is breathe. Like, seriously, calm down. Like, you're not 48 hours from a hoarding, dangerous mob coming down your street to attack your family. Like, take a breath. The second one is to, like I said, accept responsibility and understand your family. Like, if the shizzy hits the fizzy significantly, and I just don't mean a 12-hour power outage. I mean, like, if somebody cyber hacked the power grid for 30 days, who are you going to be responsible for? What does your family look like? And then sit down and think about, what does your world look like when you lose access? Because it's far easier to figure out what you might need to get when you know exactly what you're doing. This is why I get so angry when I hear people on YouTube talking about, here's the 15 things to stock up on now. Here is the 47 things that you need now. Here's the 4 things that you may not have thought to include in your bug out bag. Like, what the hell do you have a bug out bag for? Like, some people who live in high risk wildfire zones, earthquake zones, or flood zones, I would have a bug out bag.
Yes, me too. Yeah.
But you get there from planning. You don't get there from watching YouTube. Like, if somebody gives you a list or tells you, here's a PDF downloadable filler, you need to run the other way. Right? Like, if you figure it out for yourself, you're far better off. And it's a lifestyle, but it's a marathon, it's a lifestyle. But the thing is if prepping and call it what it is. If prepping starts to overtake your life, you're doing it wrong. If you're thinking constantly about what's stockpiled in your basement and the next threat profile that could come around, you're doing it wrong. Because your goal is to live an awesome life, rock your world, be the best homesteader on the face of this earth, grow your YouTube homesteading channel, raise your family, practice your religion, and live an awesome life. That's the goal. The goal is not to be a prepper, right? And some people get that backwards.
Yeah.
They're all in on prepping, and then they get angry when the freaking apocalypse doesn't come. They get angry. So some guy, I was watching some guy, and he said, do you think this is enough ammunition? He's got 10,000 rounds of ammunition on his table. And I'm like, what are you doing? We didn't use that much in 30 days of fighting the Taliban in Afghanistan. What the hell do you think is coming to your house? They
get mad when the zombies don't show up. Personally, I'd be a little bit happy the zombies didn't come, but okay, that's just me.
When it turns out to be a bloody virus and not a zombie, and you don't get to shoot people in the head, like what?
Yeah.
But that's the funny part. It's about rocking your awesome life however you want to do that. It's not about becoming a prepper, because if all you're thinking about is prepping, man, that's a sad existence. That's a tough way to go. Because you don't get that time back, right?
Nope.
You know more than most of us about the value of time in this world. And
living it in fear is not the way to live a life. It's just not.
No, I know. Preparedness is not fear. That's not.
Yep.
Fear is what people use to try to sell you preparedness. Like, I could be sitting here going, listen, I've got it figured out. I've got friggin' degrees, whatever. Blah, blah, blah. I've got these great kits. Just go to my website, drop $100. I'll send you a kit. You're good to go. What? I don't know who's in your family. I don't know how many people are there. Seriously, I love these things. Telling people to have flashlights. Are you kidding me? Hello? Everybody has one of these. It has a flashlight. Nobody buys flashlights anymore.
All the time. I use it all the time.
Nobody buys flashlights. Why the hell is the government still telling people to go buy flashlights when you carry one in your pocket all the time?
Yeah.
This is the part that
I think
drives me nuts.
The problem is it's 2022 and they're just not. And I'm tired of the excuses. It's like, come on already.
It's freaking hilarious. But I mean, we look at all that stuff that's out there, and it's and what your government is telling you, right? This is Preparedness Week. And I get mad at them all the time on LinkedIn and everywhere else. And because the message from the government is be informed, have a plan, get a kit. It's the standard thing for 20 years. Well, guess what? I've read every study that FEMA training has done in the last 15 years. Nobody's listening.
Yeah.
They're not listening. So I don't care what glossy crap you throw out on Emergency Preparedness Week, and you pat yourself on the back because you're a great emergency manager and you did a fantastic job. You'll go have your lattes and pat each other one another for a week. Nobody's listening. But I keep arguing. Nobody's arguing. Nobody's asking the question, like I told you at the beginning of this whole thing. Why aren't people listening? Why aren't all the people on your chat here listening to what the government is saying? Why aren't they? And they haven't been for 30 years. They spend, in the U.S. alone, on emergency preparedness communications, FEMA spends over $250 million in the run of a year. And nobody is listening. But they keep doing it.
Spending the money.
And they keep yelling louder, because maybe if I just yell at these people louder, they'll listen. No, it's the message, dummy. And it's the whole thing. Like, for example, and I use this all the time to a lot of people have strong faith, right? So in a faith community, who's your trusted source? It's your pastor, your imam, your rabbi, whatever your faith is. You trust when they tell you to do something or they give you advice, right? You trust them. The government is not a trusted source. We could go on for decades about that.
I know.
Right?
I was going to say, I can tell you why I don't listen, because I don't trust the government anymore. I just don't. And it's sad, but I don't.
It is, but you don't trust the government. So just because I'm an emergency manager for the Quinney Township doesn't mean I'm a trusted source for an emergency just because I have that title, right? I have to earn your trust. What has your township done to earn your trust? They've done nothing, right? So when the shizzy hits the fizzy, Lynn is going to go look at her Instagram group with these incredible homesteader people. She's going to look to her faith leaders and other important leaders in her life for guidance. That's who the emergency preparedness message should be coming through. We should be using the trusted sources that are in the community already, the pathways that are already established, right? Yep. Coming on a homesteader platform to talk about preparedness is the best way, not because I'm a blah, blah, blah expert and I know everything in the world, blah, 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 because the world's full of people whose egos are way through the roof. Is you talk, I don't want to talk to a church congregation. I want the pastor to talk to the church congregation about emergency preparedness. They will listen.
They will listen. You're at that is probably, that's like boom, like light bulb just went off above my head.
And I tell them that, but no $250 million from FEMA training going about in emergency preparedness education. Let's go.
And when you think about the amount of money it could go to actually helping people who are going through all these things, like, really?
And I'll tell you who's got it right. The people who got it right are the New Zealanders. So New Zealanders have earthquakes that happen all the time. In 2012, they had 2 very shortly after each other in the same place. They realized that their first responders can't come help people, right? So for free, they train people in something called CERT. So it trains people like you and I to go to homes, certify them for occupation, put the tape and the numbers on the door. They provide all the equipment free of charge to the neighborhood. So in a neighborhood, somewhere in somebody's backyard is a freestanding shed provided by the government full of all the emergency equipment the neighborhood will need because the government knows they can't come to help.
That's awesome.
So they pay for it free. All of it's paid for. Your training, your first aid training, your first aid kits, your trauma kits, it's all free. The government, anybody who wants the training, you can have it and you can have a kit because the government knows they can't come help you. Because if, like, I live in the city of Ottawa, right? So nation's capital, trucker convoy center, love it. In 2019, before the pandemic, we had 300 code zeros in the city. That meant that when you called 911 for an ambulance, nobody was available. Doesn't matter what was happening. 300 times in 1 year before the pandemic.
That's insane.
So if you're counting on 911 as your only medical intervention, good luck to you. So I'll give you an example. I was riding a bus back, aka depending on public transport, a double-decker bus. So I was on the top deck. Some guy decided he would try to get down to his stop beforehand. So he went down the stairs while the bus was moving, right? So he goes arse over tea kettle down the stairs, pops his shoulder right out. Okay. Oh. He was loud. Let me tell you, he was loud. Okay. It took 45 minutes for a paramedic to be made available to come help him. So he sat there wailing in pain. We sat on the bus for 45 minutes on the side of a city street because there wasn't even a fire truck available to come help. There was nobody. Sorry.
In a city the size of Ottawa, like,
it's a million people.
Yeah, you think, you'll be one there in like 5 minutes.
So again, when I sit back as part of my nerd studies that I do, and I look at actual capacities of public systems. So I'll look at Quinney Township, and I'll look at the number of police officers per capita, the number of volunteer firefighters per capita, the number of EMS per capita. I'll look at all this stuff, and when you look at it, you're like, holy poo-poo, I need to take a first aid course. Because you realize you're assuming this huge risk, and you have no idea. Because all of us assume that when you dial that,
there's someone that,
number one, somebody will answer, which is probably going to happen.
Yeah.
But you're making a huge assumption that somebody will show up.
It happened to us. I will tell you, a few years ago, David thought he was having a heart attack. and because he was having all the symptoms, and we called, and we were on base at the time, so the MPs also came, military police, and they sat there with us, and we waited and we waited and we waited, and one of the MPs said, "This is ridiculous." They called, whoever it was they called, got special permission, put David in one of their cars, took me in another car, and drove us to the emergency room. And we pulled up, and there was an ambulance sitting in the bay. Well, that's what really drove. And the military police with me actually put in a complaint about it and asked if we would mind signing it. But it's just the fact that, 911, we're taught, we teach the kids, if there's an emergency, you call 911. We just take it for granted that there's going to be, luckily it wasn't a heart attack. He ended up pulling every single muscle in his chest at work. That's what it ended up being. But what if it had been?
Yeah. If the police weren't available and somebody had a heart attack and you have to wait 45 minutes for an ambulance, where's your preparedness for that? Again, preparedness is not about living in fear. It's about you being able to carry on with your awesome life. But when something occurs, you've thought through it, you have a plan, you know what to do. And so your old anxiety level just does this, right? So
you don't panic when it happens.
No, you don't panic.
You're prepared.
Panic is no good to anybody, right? I mean, pouring more rum is exactly right. But, have you thought about rum? I'm sorry to my American friends on there, but y'all got to legalize marijuana because there's nothing better than a good joint in the middle of things going wrong, right? Seriously, I don't know what's wrong with y'all down there, but or eat it.
In some states it's legal, but
just eat it. Just eat eat a marijuana gummy. If you don't want to smoke it, just eat a marijuana gummy. You'll get all happy and giggly, and you'll go to bed, and it'll be a great day. Anyhow.
So I guess my last big question I have here, I guess, is so what is it, Jeff, that compels you to want to help others to take control and be ready for these emergencies, and why is it so important to you?
Well, because a lot of my studies deals with vulnerable people, and I did a lot of work in what we call politically incorrect, but homeless or socioeconomically challenged. So people who live paycheck to paycheck, fixed income, people dealing with addictions. They say that about 50% of Canadians are $400 from not being able to pay a bill. And I know in America, it's not that much different, right? So you have a whole segment of the population that is looking at preparedness through a lens of just another damn thing that's coming out of my wallet. I don't have time for it. I got to work another shift. I don't know whether I can pay my utility bill. Am I going to have to choose between pizza for my kids on Friday or making a payment on the gas bill? That's a huge amount of people that live there, and nobody is talking to them. There's a pathway to preparedness for people who are socioeconomically challenged, for people who are vulnerable, for people on addiction, all this stage that nobody's talking to. Nobody's talking to at all. Nobody is talking to what's your plan for the homeless? What's your plan for those who are alcoholics, right? I mean, I grew up in a partially alcoholic family. I mean, preparedness didn't exist because it was all about pouring yourself a next bottle of rum. So, it's just making a difference. Everybody does something to make a difference in their life. This is what I do. I worked in the Army for 28 years. I ran around the world and did that kind of stuff for long enough. That's the body and the mind gets beat up enough when you do that. And then you have to take a break and stop doing that. And then you look at, hey, listen, there is a need here. There are people who aren't listening, and there's information available. It's not like I'm this brilliant guy who's come up with this miraculous system to help everybody. There's just that niche. Nobody's talking to these people. The regular people who get up every day and go punch a clock. Us normal Joes. Nobody's talking to them.
And people are thinking, great, it's just another thing we can't afford.
Yeah.
That's another thing. And this is definitely something everybody should, whether you're very rich or not.
You got fired during a pandemic. right? Like, let's talk
Yeah.
a little bit about, had you thought through preparedness, your world could have looked differently without spending a penny. Like somebody will
Yeah.
say, well, just have 6 months of, bills saved. Really? You're talking to families who don't have $400 and you want them to magically save 6 months? Yeah. Okay. Dave Ramsey, you're right. Absolutely. Love the guy. But welcome to the real world. And the vast majority of working folks out there are in a position where they don't have 6 months of money tucked away. Right. So
I know.
I
got the Dave Ramsey book and I read it and I was depressed.
I mean, we have two choices, right?
I'm like,
yeah. We can lecture
like,
people who aren't prepared, which is an arrogant, ignoramus thing for somebody to do. It's arrogant. It's ridiculous. You can lecture people or you can help them. You can give people a pathway. Now, I can list the 25 steps to do in a row that I think will help you. They're all free. If you decide to do none of them, okay, whatever, right? But what I try to do is put it out there, right? Yeah. Like, just put the information out there, give people access to what I think, based upon years of studying what everybody's tried to do to this point. And again, you put it out there and people can consume it, ignore it, burn it, yell at me, call me names. Listen, I spent 28 years in the Army. You can't imagine the names that I've been called, right? You're not going to hurt my feelings.
You can't hurt my feelings.
No.
I hear that a lot from a certain other half.
You can't hear my feelings. You can't hurt my feelings. So again, I mean, so we turn around and say everything should be legal. Exactly. Like, I'm a libertarian. Sounds a lot like Thor. I don't care if you want to do cocaine. Who cares? Like, as long as you're not causing harm to your neighbor or anybody else, why should anybody in the world care what you put into your body? It's your own damn body, right?
That's what I say.
Like,
whatever. What goes on in your own home, it does, as long as you're not affecting me or hurting some, driving drunk high or driving drunk. Or, like, I am not God. I am not judging you. Like, that's not my place, so.
You could argue if God didn't want you to do it, he probably wouldn't have invaded opium plants, right? I don't know. Yeah. Like, that's a whole different argument, but the thing is that, I mean, I'll just ask anybody want to jump on my Instagram or something like that. Give me suggestions on what you want to hear. If the answer to that is you don't want to hear me anymore, that's perfectly fine. I'm good with that one too. Right. But like, what do you want to know? Like I said, I put out the daily tip every morning. It just goes out. It doesn't take that long. Doesn't take long to consume. It's on my Buy Me a Coffee page. If you want to know links to all of my stuff, you go to insidemycanoehead.ca. It's all on there. But yeah, I mean, I've got a plan for what I'm doing the next couple of months. Maybe it's not what you want to hear, right?
Yeah.
And that's the important part. Yeah.
I'm just gonna mute. Sorry, I just had to double check because my internet was starting to go a teeny bit wonky. I wanted to make sure nobody was online.
Yeah.
We have too many on at once. It can go bad, but so if anyone has any suggestions, absolutely let Jeff know. I do read your tip every day on Instagram when I sit down and check all my posts or whatever. So I'm reading them. And I always like learning something, new every day or week or whatever. So it's nice to
sometimes it's just like just give you a think. I didn't think about that. I didn't realize that. Or I had one person joke on my Twitter on my Twitter page there where I put the preparedness tip that he's waiting for people like me to come fill his generator. But that's great because you know what happened? There just was a connection with another human being about preparedness. That individual, whomever they are, may go home tonight and think twice about that, going, maybe somebody isn't coming to fill my generator. That's how the whole idea is not giving somebody a laundry list of things to fix their problems. It's getting people to think about how they might deal with a situation when it's presented before it happens. I mean, it's one of the principles of my favorite book on Stoicism. And one of the things that the Stoics speak to is you should think about all the bad things that could happen to you before they happen and then have a plan, right? So you get up every day. I know I'm going to meet ignorant, idiotic people today. What am I going to do when I meet them?
Lord, I laugh because we actually hear that some mornings.
Yeah.
In this house. So yeah, we actually were just talking about that today.
Yeah.
Like we just, like
you're going to meet idiots.
Whenever we go out, we always get behind the car that doesn't, like, we're in a rush to go somewhere and the car in front of us isn't. And of course they're like, oh, they're going to take that right. And I said, you know what? We need to stop, just like take a breath and just say, you know what? There's probably going to be someone that's going to be going too slow when we go out. We just need to like stop, because I said it's getting exhausting.
The old saying is, like, will this matter in 30 days?
Exactly.
So why are you burning any energy? Yes. Because the Stoics, and this is the thing about preparedness too, is the Stoics say that there are two types of things in the world. There are things you can control and things that are beyond your control. Why are you spending any time whatsoever worrying about things that are beyond your control? Why?
Yep.
Somebody cuts you off. Why are you allowing that to make you angry? Like, why are you wasting the precious time and energy and emotional energy you have in life worried about that?
They don't care. They don't care. They don't even have a single thought about you. So
Yeah, yes, exactly, Jean. I agree with you 100%.
Yep.
Absolutely.
It's taken me a few years to learn that. That's one of the good things about getting older. We tend to get a little wiser.
Right. So in preparedness,
and, I know,
we look at it from the point of view of disaster impact reduction. And that means I'm not worried why the power's out. I'm worried the power's out. And what's my plan when it goes out? Because then the reason is, if you sit at home worried about tonight's the night the tornado hits, or tonight the night the dam busts and the flood comes down, or some yahoo lit a fire in the local farmer's field and tonight's the night my house burns down, you can spiral yourself in this little thing of fear. So when you study disaster impact reduction, you're just worried about no power. You really don't care why. You just don't have power. So what are you doing it? You've figured it out. Power goes off. I give it a couple minutes. If it doesn't work, I take out my little power generator. I plug it into the router. The internet comes back up. I can keep watching the hockey games. I literally no, because I don't have cable. My internet's all of my TV is powered over the internet, right? It's not over cable TV. So I hook up the router. I hook up the TV and the router to my portable generator or my power box. And I sit there and I watch the hockey game in a power outage.
I just got a couple of people asking, Jeff, would you show the book again?
So it's set up like those that have daily readings in the Bible, or depending on what your religious is, it's the same thing. It's basically a day. And it gives you a little thought for the day about Stoicism, about reflecting on the world around you, and gives you some ideas about that. And a lot of it is about, listen, there's so little in this world that I can worry about, that I can control. So I only worry about the things I can control. And I just, everything else, it is what it is, right? Bad stuff happens. You didn't cause Putin to invade Ukraine. You didn't cause the suffering that's going on in Ukraine. Other than being a human being and being cheesed off about it, why are you letting that consume your emotional state? You've got a choice. You can let something bother you or not, right? So,
Yep.
and the Daily Stoic
For me, I will say I haven't watched the news in 6 weeks. I had to stop because I was letting it consume me, and it wasn't just what was going on over there. It's everything. And like you said, why am I letting this steal my peace? Like, why am I? So yeah, I'm like, that's it. And I have to say, a little bit of me is like, I have no idea what's going on right now. I really don't. I only know because of angry friends on Facebook about some stuff that's happening, you know. And I'm like, geez, I better go look and see what's going on. But that's the only way I know. And I have to say, I've been much happier the last few weeks. So
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, Tanya, I stopped, and I was a news junkie.
Yeah.
That was my problem. I would watch it all morning, and then I'd watch it at the lunch hour, and then we'd watch it again at 6 o'clock at night. So, and then it's 24 hours on a lot of channels. So
yeah. And trying to find, again, back to a trusted source, trying to find a trusted source in the news is difficult. Let's be frank, Lynn, you get your joy from your kids and your chickens.
Yep.
You don't get your joy from CNN. So
no,
why?
Absolutely not.
Right?
Yeah.
Unless CNN is announcing that all chickens are turning into zombies in the next 30 minutes and are going to attack you. It's probably not much added value to your life, right? You get up in the morning to see your chickens. You throw your legs out of bed in the morning, ready to tackle the day, to see how your seedlings did, to see how your chickens did. And then you wake up and realize, those 2 kids are still here. They haven't left yet. But, but that's your joy. So
it is.
And this is what preparedness does. It allows you to focus on the joys and the happiness and the awesome, incredible things in life, and not focus on the doomsday apocalyptic end of the world, 6 years of toilet paper and 10,000 rounds of ammunition, right?
So I guess just to wrap this up, Jeff, I guess what do you want people to take away from this live tonight? Like, if what do you hope that people are taking away from this?
That people will have an honest conversation with themselves about what their world looks like right now, and then what their world looks like when disruptions occur. Shizzy hits the fizzy when disruptions occur. I mean, that's the big thing. I mean, having a look at your life and deciding, and you very well may look at yourself in the mirror, some of these homesteaders, and go, we're good to go. We got this, right? And that's fantastic. But you would be a rare entity in the world. The vast majority of people are assuming risks that they're unaware of simply because they don't think their way through. So it's basically investing a little time, a great cup of coffee. I use a 20-cent Hilroy scribbler from Walmart. Like, listen, it's nothing. Like, and a 10-cent pen. It's no more complicated than that. And when you get to a question that you don't understand, ask. Fire me a line on Instagram. Fire me something on a YouTube channel, comment, whatever. And this is why I'm going through the podcast. Everybody likes to consume content in different. Some people are visual people. Some people are audio people. Some people like to put podcasts on while they bake. Some people like YouTube. Like, everybody is different. So the idea is if we put the content out on different mediums, you can consume as much or as little as you want on whatever is your favorite medium. But the big takeaway is just understand that it really is your responsibility, and it is largely free, but it is something that you got to sit down and think about and figure out what you want your world to look like so that you can continue to rock your life. Like, Atlas Bunkers is a great company, but you don't need to build an Atlas bunker in your backyard. You don't. You don't. They're really cool. Don't get me wrong. If I had the money, I would. But I don't have the money. I don't have $100,000 for a hole in the ground.
Good night, Annie. I'll see you Saturday. Looking forward to meeting you. Thanks for stopping by. So I'm just reading Friend's Homestead here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, preparedness smells really bad when it goes wrong. How's that sound? So if your preparedness smells bad, you're doing it wrong.
Okay, so I guess my internet is really starting to give me fits here. So I guess I should be happy it let me go this long before it decided it didn't like it anymore. So I'm just going to thank everyone for coming by. Jeff, thank you so much. This was great. I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for coming on. My third live, and I think this went pretty good. So I think I'm getting better.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Lynn, it was an absolute pleasure to be here. I've known you for 30 years, so I have no doubt that this is going. I know we're old.
I was 5. I was 5 when
I know you were 5. You were just this little thing running around the hallway, and I remember that first time. But yeah, there's no doubt your channel's going to boom. You just keep being you, and that's all the world needs. And that's the thing, right? You just come on this, and you just be yourself. And here we are. You like us, you don't like us. Whatever.
Exactly. Like I tried to be, when I first started, I tried different things and it felt horrible. It didn't feel good. So
you just
love
it's like
me,
you
hate
say,
me, this is me.
It's like, hi friends, it's Lynn. Like I love that opening. Like I love it. It's Lynn guitar right there. It's the real deal, the real person. And it's the same thing when I get on the podcast. Here I am, like it or hate it. I'm not going to put on a persona and pretend to be something I'm not, right?
Well, one of my favorite sayings is, I'm too busy being with people who love me to worry about the people who hate me or something like that. Yeah. So it took me a long time to get there and 4 cancer fights and a few other things. But if you don't like me, it doesn't hurt my feelings. You don't have to watch.
Hey, exactly. There's a little button on the podcast. It's a big stop button. If you don't like listening to me, it's really easy to press.
Yeah. So, you guys are so nice. Thank you so much. I was just reading some of the comments. So, okay. Well, I guess this is it. Yeah, it's getting dark here actually, finally. So I'm going to say good night. And to all my YouTube Canadian friends, I'll see you Saturday at the conference. I'm so looking forward to it. Been looking forward to this for months. So it'll be nice to actually meet everybody in person and get lots of selfies. And I'm hoping to videotape it. And before we go, Jeff, your canoe trip that you have coming up, are you going to be filming that for your channel?
Yes, I am. So I've got a GoPro. I don't think the drone's going to make it because I keep flying it into buildings. I haven't figured that out. But yeah, so I'm filming hours of it. I'll be putting several series out on it. But I'm stoked. Listen, it's the first time I get to ride in a float plane, flying into the backcountry land and then paddle our way out. There's 10 of us. It's going to be a hoot.
I can't wait to see it. I think just visually it's going to be beautiful. Like that alone. So yeah, we'll look forward to seeing that when you come back. So have a safe trip.
I will.
And everybody take care. Everyone stay safe, and we'll talk to you all again soon. Good night, everyone. Okay, I just got to end broadcast.